9 aircraft disappeared. Not over decades. In 40 days. And nobody's calculating the real invoice yet. I'm Kane Shimatsuka, and I don't do headlines. I do math. Because when you follow the numbers on what this war is actually costing America, you stop reading Pentagon briefings the same way ever again. Let me show you something the news cycle won't pause long enough to calculate. February 28th, the US and Israel launched what they initially called a targeted deterrence operation. 72 hours later, it was a full-scale air war. 2 weeks in, it became the most expensive American military engagement since Iraq. And right now, as I'm recording this, it's still burning through $1 to $2 billion per day, with no end visible on any planning document I can access. Here's what's been left on the ground while everyone argues about deadlines and rhetoric. 9 confirmed aircraft losses, each one carrying a price tag that's only the beginning of the story. Start with the F-15E Strike Eagle that went down over central Iran in early April. BBC Verify confirmed the wreckage. That's an $87 million strike fighter, one of the most lethal platforms in the American inventory. But the aircraft cost? That's almost irrelevant compared to what happened next, because the rescue operation launched to extract that 2-man crew became one of the single most expensive 48-hour windows of the entire conflict. I'll come back to that. Hold that number. The A-10 Warthog that crashed in the Gulf. Pilot survived. The Air Force has been trying to retire this platform for years because it's old, it's slow, and it doesn't fit modern doctrine. But losing one in an active combat zone where close air support is the difference between extraction and body bags? That's not a footnote. That's a capability gap. The E-3 Sentry. Most people scrolled past this one. Big mistake. Verified imagery from March 29th showed an E-3 command and control aircraft split in half at Prince Sultan Air Base after an Iranian missile strike. This isn't a fighter jet. This is the eye coordinating everything else in the sky. Price tag runs around $270 million per aircraft. But here's what that number doesn't capture. Every hour that platform isn't airborne, every American pilot operating in Iranian airspace is flying partially blind. You can't invoice degraded situational awareness, but you pay for it in reaction time, and reaction time in contested airspace is measured in whether people come home. Then the KC-135 refueling aircraft that went down in western Iraq on March 12th. 6 crew members died. CENTCOM ruled out hostile fire, ruled out friendly fire. Investigation still open. 6 Americans. The KC-135 is what keeps long-range strike operations functional. You lose tankers, your operational radius collapses. Suddenly, targets that were reachable yesterday require an entirely different logistical architecture today. That's not a plane. That's the circulatory system of power projection. 3 F-15Es lost over Kuwait on March 2nd in what CENTCOM described as an apparent friendly fire incident. All 6 crew ejected safely. But 3 strike fighters eliminated in one engagement before most of the American public even understood this war had fully started? That's a $261 million loss before breakfast. Now here's where the accounting gets brutal. That F-15E crew I mentioned earlier, the one shot down over central Iran, standard protocol. You don't leave people behind, ever. I agree with that protocol completely. But what the Pentagon didn't want to detail publicly is what that extraction actually cost. CBS News reported the U.S. surged dozens of aircraft into Iranian territory for the rescue. 2 MC-130J Commando II transport aircraft became stranded on soft desert terrain inside Iran. Unable to take off, U.S. Special Forces made the decision to destroy them on the ground rather than allow sensitive technology to fall into Iranian hands. Correct call? But each MC-130J carries a price tag of approximately $100 million, 2 of them torched in the Iranian desert. Reports also indicate at least 2 Black Hawk helicopters were destroyed during extraction efforts near Isfahan. Each Black Hawk runs about $21 million, 1 rescue mission, 2 transport planes, 2 helicopters, roughly $250 million spent to bring 2 crew members home. And I want to be clear about something here. That's what this country should do. That's the right decision. But understand what that figure tells you about the operational intensity of this war. A single rescue operation cost more than some nations spend on their entire annual defense budgets. Now layer in the drone attrition nobody's tracking properly. U.S. officials confirmed the loss of between 10 and 16 MQ-9 Reaper drones during just the first 21 days of fighting, shot down by Iranian air defenses or destroyed on the ground during base strikes. An MQ-9 Reaper cost approximately $30 million per unit. Run that calculation. 10 Reapers, that's $300 million. 16 Reapers, that's $480 million in 3 weeks. And then there's the contested claim that should concern every defense planner in Washington. Iranian state media claims its forces shot down at least 1 F-35. The U.S. has not confirmed this. If that claim is ever verified, it would represent the first combat loss of an F-35 in history. The F-35A variant carries a unit cost of roughly $80 million. But the real cost of losing a fifth-generation stealth fighter isn't the hardware. It's the intelligence compromise. It's the tactical adjustments every adversary makes once they understand the platform's vulnerabilities under real combat conditions. That's a cost you can't calculate until years later when you realize your technological edge just evaporated. Here's where I earned my reputation for being a pessimist. Pentagon officials reportedly estimated the first 6 days of this war cost the United States $11.3 billion. That's before the rescue operation I just described. That's before sustained drone losses. That's before continuous carrier strike group operations in the Gulf, where every day a carrier sits in contested waters, burns fuel, ammunition, and readiness metrics that take months to restore. Current daily spending is estimated between $1 billion and $2 billion. In the first 2 days of high-intensity combat operations, the U.S. consumed $5.6 billion in ammunition alone. Not aircraft, not fuel, not personnel costs, just munitions, bombs and missiles expended in 48 hours. There's now a $200 billion supplemental funding request reportedly moving through Congress to begin replacing what's been spent and destroyed in the first month of this conflict. For context, the entire Afghanistan war cost approximately $2.3 trillion over 20 years. This war is 40 days old, and Congress is already discussing a $200 billion replenishment package. And here's the variable nobody in the Pentagon wants to discuss publicly. China is watching every expenditure. Every Patriot interceptor fired in the Gulf is one that cannot sit in a magazine in the Pacific. Every THAAD round consumed defending the UAE is a THAAD round unavailable for the Taiwan scenario that every defense planner has been gaming out since 2020. America's entire interceptor stockpile was designed for global simultaneous commitments. This war is stress testing that assumption in real time, and Beijing is taking notes. Production numbers tell the story Pentagon briefings won't. Lockheed Martin's target for PAC-3 MSE interceptor production is 650 units annually by the planning documents I've reviewed. America's allies are consuming interceptors across 11 countries simultaneously right now. The replacement timeline for what's already been expended? Years. Plural. The strategic depletion happening in the Gulf isn't just an Iran problem. It's a deterrence problem with implications that extend far beyond this theater. But the military expenditure is only half the invoice. Here's what's hitting every household in America, whether they're paying attention or not. Oil was trading around $70 per barrel when this war started on February 28th. As of this week, U.S. crude is sitting at roughly $112 to $104 per barrel. Every time Trump speaks about deadlines, it spikes further. The Strait of Hormuz carries approximately 1/5 of the world's crude oil under normal conditions. Right now, conditions are anything but normal. Iran has effectively weaponized the strait, and the weapon isn't missiles, it's the global energy market. Saudi Arabia's Yanbu port saw crude exports drop 15% week over week in late March. The King Fahd Causeway linking Saudi Arabia and Bahrain remains indefinitely closed. Iranian drones continue striking petrochemical facilities across the Gulf. The UAE's defense ministry confirmed it's actively intercepting incoming Iranian missiles and drones. Sri Lanka announced its largest ever relief package for farmers and households because fuel prices there have jumped by a third since February 28th. Sri Lanka, a country that couldn't locate Iran on a map, is restructuring its domestic economy because of a war happening 3,000 miles away. Multiply that impact across Southeast Asia, across Europe, across every American who drives to work or buys groceries transported by truck. And here's the calculation that should concern every economist tracking this conflict. We're not looking at a temporary spike. We're looking at sustained structural damage to global energy markets. The longer the strait remains compromised, the more permanent the adaptations become. Alternative supply chains get established. Insurance premiums get permanently repriced. Strategic petroleum reserves get drawn down to levels that take a decade to restore. The bill compounds daily, and the interest never stops accruing. So here's the question I keep asking because nobody in Washington seems interested in answering it honestly. The United States has spent somewhere north of $50 billion in 40 days. It has lost at least 9 aircraft, likely more if the drone numbers are accurate. It has expended ammunition reserves that will require years and hundreds of billions of dollars to reconstitute. 13 American service members are dead. What has been achieved? The Strait of Hormuz remains restricted. Iran is still launching strikes. This morning, Iranian proxies hit petrochemical facilities in Saudi Arabia's Jubail region, targeting companies by name: ExxonMobil, Sadara, Chevron Phillips. The IRGC cyber unit issued a statement on Telegram claiming all self-restraint has been removed and threatening to deprive the U.S. and its allies of Gulf energy for years. Iran has not capitulated. Iran's president stated that 14 million Iranians have declared their readiness to sacrifice their lives. Iran is calling on its youth to form human chains around power plants. This is not a country showing signs of breaking. Trump set an 8 p.m. Eastern deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He said this time he won't move it. By some counts, this is the fourth or fifth deadline issued since the war began, but something about today feels different. Karg Island, which handles between 85% and 95% of Iran's oil exports, is reportedly under strike again right now. Israel is threatening the entire Iranian rail network. Iranian air defenses are actively engaging targets across multiple theaters. And when Trump was asked Monday whether the war was winding down or escalating, he gave a 3-word answer that should terrify anyone paying attention. He said, "I don't know. Not positioning, not spin." The President of the United States admitting on camera he doesn't know whether the most expensive conflict America has fought this century is heading toward de-escalation or total infrastructure war against a nation of 85 million people. 9 aircraft, $50 billion minimum in 40 days, oil at $114 per barrel, 13 dead Americans, daily costs running $1 to $2 billion with no visible endpoint. That's the ledger I'm tracking. The question I keep returning to, the question that defines whether this becomes a manageable conflict or an economic catastrophe, is whether the people making decisions in Washington, Tel Aviv, and Tehran are looking at the same math I am, or whether their strategic calculations are running on completely different variables than the ones appearing in your fuel costs and retirement accounts. 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. We'll learn if deadlines still carry meaning. I'm Kane Shimatsuka. The numbers don't lie even when everyone else does.